Hello out there, YouTube fans. This is Sunset Shimmer here. And, you guessed it, since it's the last day of September, me and my friends, along with two new ones, are going to be re-watching Sodor's Legend of the Lost Treasure. But, as it's been done with the previous re-watches, I will be retelling the events of the story. So, without further ado, let's get to it. It was a sunny day on the island of Sodor. A perfect day, Thomas thought, for racing Birdie. "Express coming through," he peeped as he sped past Birdie. The passengers inside his coaches, Annie and Clarabelle, bounced around like peas in a frying pan. Thomas and Birdie's great race reference. "You know that Sir Topham Hatt doesn't approve of you racing," Annie said. "Nonsense! I'll always be Sir Topham Hatt's #1 engine," Thomas puffed. "My branch line is the most important part of the whole railway." Every railway on Sodor is important, Thomas, not just your branch line. On the other side of Sodor, a new branch line was being built between Arlesborough Harbor and Harwick. Marion, the railway steam shovel, traveled through Arlesborough Junction on her way to the new branch line. Suddenly, Marion saw something she couldn't believe. Tiny little engines. A brake van named Toad laughed. Haven't you ever seen miniature engines before?" He introduced Marion to Mike, Rex, and Bert. They were very small engines who helped take heavy goods to the big engines. Marion was sure they were magical. "I bet they make wishes come true," she thought. Marion. The next morning, Gordon was waiting for Thomas to bring him his coaches. But Thomas was still being very cheeky and sped off with the coaches himself. He raced past Gordon, pulling the coaches faster and faster until he reached a red signal. "Cinders and ashes!" Thomas gasped as he came to a sudden stop, but the coaches didn't stop. They flew off the tracks. Oh boy, thus beginning Thomas's adventure, full of troubles. Sir Topham Hatt was not happy when he heard what Thomas had done. He ordered Thomas to work on the new branch line. "But sir, what about my branch line?" Thomas peeped. Just then a new engine named Ryan rolled up. "I was invited to look after that branch line." Sir Topham Hatt said. "My new tank engine is here." Thomas couldn't believe it. "A new tank engine?" Oh boy. Thomas went to work on the new branch line, but he didn't pay attention to the danger signs. Suddenly the earth crumbled away beneath him, and the tracks buckled and broke. Thomas crashed down into a giant underground cavern. "Fizzling fireboxes! Where am I?" he peeped. As Thomas looked around the cavern, he saw something amazing. There in front of him was an old pirate ship. Wow. After Emily towed Thomas away for repairs, Rocky pulled the pirate ship up out of the cavern. "How did anyone get that in there?" asked Alfie. "Jack thought someone had built it in there, like a ship in a bottle." "Nonsense," puffed Donald. "There must have been a way to sail in." "Aye," Douglas agreed. "Maybe the cave entrance collapsed." "If there's a buried pirate ship, there must be buried treasure too," Marion peeped. She made a wish to the little magical engines that she would dig up the treasure. Oh, Marion. Not far in Arlesborough Bay, a mysterious sailor stood in his sailboat, holding his telescope. "Stop bobbing about," he commanded to his tiny boat. "Sorry," the boat replied through a mouthful of water. The sailor raised his telescope to watch the excitement at the new branch line and started to make a plan. That night, Thomas went to the sheds to rest, but Ryan, the new tank engine, was already there. He invited Thomas in, but Thomas steamed away. "I'd rather sleep on a siding by myself," he puffed grumpily. Thomas rolled into the darkness. As he settled down, he heard rustling. He looked up and saw a ghost ship glowing in the dark. Thomas followed the eerie sailboat. A ghostly figure stood upon its deck. It glided past the danger signs right up to the edge of the hole that led into the cavern. That's when Thomas realized it wasn't a ghost boat. He's got wheels! "Why are you snaking about after me?" the man asked. Thomas introduced himself. "I discovered this cavern and the pirate ship, but Rocky has gotten all the credit." "Well, that makes us friends," the man replied. "My name is Sailor John." "And I'm Skiff," the boat said. "We're looking for the treasure." Sailor John tied a rope around his waist, and Thomas lowered him into the cavern. "Sailor John gave me wheels after you found the ship," Skiff explained. "This way we can search on land." "I found it!" Sailor John exclaimed from the hole. "The treasure?" Thomas and Skiff asked. "No!" the sailor called back. "The map!" The sun was rising as Thomas returned to the new branch line. Ryan called to him. "Thomas, did I see you with a sailboat?" "No," Thomas peeped. "You did not." "Well, I guess it was a dream," Ryan said. Ryan went to an old hopper to fill up with coal. Thomas knew it was the bad coal, but he didn't say anything. Big mistake, Thomas. Big mistake. That afternoon, Ryan went to fetch some dynamite for Marion, but when he returned, his funnel was spitting sparks because of the bad coal. The sparks set the trucks with the dynamite on fire. Thomas rushed to help. He buffered up to the flaming trucks to push them out of the yard. In the confusion, the signalman switched the tracks, sending Thomas toward the cavern. Thomas's brakes squealed as the trucks rolled into the giant hole. The dynamite exploded with a mighty kaboom! Sir Topham Hatt was very upset. He ordered Thomas to stay in the siding for the rest of the day. The other engines returned to work. It was a quiet and uneventful afternoon. Until Marion Shovel uncovered a treasure chest. Her wish had come true. But there was one person who wasn't pleased by this discovery. Sailor John. "I haven't searched all this time to see that treasure put in a museum," he growled at Thomas later that day. Skiff was confused. "But you always said we would give it to a museum." Thomas pushed Skiff and Sailor John aside and rushed away. The moment his and Sailor John's false friendship ended. Thank goodness, too. Thomas returned to the new branch line as the sun was setting. Ryan rolled up next to him. "Thank you for helping me with the dynamite," Ryan peeped. "I'm sorry you got in trouble." I should be the one saying sorry," Thomas replied. "I should have warned you about the bad coal." Ryan smiled and invited Thomas into the sheds. "That's all right. Thomas peeped. "I think I'll spend the night at Knapford Station, just in case." "In case of what?" Ryan asked, but Thomas was already gone. At Knapford Station, Thomas hid behind some sheds near Sir Topham Hatt's office, where the treasure had been locked away in a safe. He waited and waited and eventually fell asleep. While Thomas slept, Skiff and Sailor John rolled up to the platform. "I don't want any part in this," Skiff protested, but Sailor John didn't listen. He snuck into the office and stole the treasure, and destroyed the office in the process. "Help!" Skiff cried. "Help!" Thomas woke and started to chase them. "You'll have to call me Pirate John from now on," the sailor yelled from his boat with an evil laugh. Thomas raced as fast as he could. His whistle blew a warning to all the nearby trains. "Express coming through!" Rex, Mike, and Bert rushed to help. They dumped ballast onto the tracks. The escaping boat crashed right through. Ryan tried to slow them down, too, but it didn't work. "Thomas!" Skiff shouted. "Run me off the rails! I won't mind!" Thomas sped up and bumped Skiff. The tiny boat flew off the rails and splashed into the harbor. Screech! Thomas tried to brake, but he couldn't stop. He leaped off the rails and came to a rest in the surf. Skiff rocked back and forth, taking on water. "The treasure's too heavy!" he cried. "Throw it overboard or we'll be sunk!" "No!" shouted Sailor John. "Sail on, I tell you!" Skiff managed to hit Sailor John with his boom and knock him into the water. In the commotion, the treasure toppled over too. It sank beneath the waves. The police soon arrived and took Sailor John away. Such a fitting end for such an unfit pirate. Divers rescued the treasure and delivered it to the Arlesborough Museum just in time for the completion of the new branch line. "My engines are much more important to me than any treasure," Sir Topham Hatt said, "and you, Thomas, are my number one." And Twilight's, of course. He let Thomas roll through and break the ribbon, opening the line. Thomas was very happy to be such an important and really useful engine. He blew his whistle, and all the engines cheered. The end. Well, how was that retelling? Was it any better or any worse than the last time? Personally, I think it's better than the last time. Well, be on the lookout for the rewatch, everyone. This is Sunset Shimmer saying goodbye, YouTube fans, and happy last day of September.